You're watching The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV Angela Yee, Charlamagne the God. We are The Breakfast Club. We got some special guests in the building. We have Tamika Mallory. Welcome.
What's up, y'all?
We have Briana. Welcome.
Hi.
And we have Mysonne.
What's going on,
What's
Ken?
up, guys?
Peace.
Yeah. Now, what are we fighting today? We always fighting injustice.
Always fighting. So you want to start? Mike?
No, you start. This is your story.
Basically, a lot of people are aware of the drama that's been going on with American Airlines. A couple weeks ago, October 16th or 15th, on a Sunday, we were coming back from the Revolt Music Conference, actually, and there was a ticket issue with my ticket. I printed out a ticket that had one seat on it and got to the gate, and the seat was changed. I encountered a ticket gate agent person who was extremely nasty, very, very rude and dismissive of me. And I asked for her name at the very end of a conversation that she and I were going through, of me saying, what's your name? People don't like when you ask for names and badge numbers. The pilot walked out. In full disclosure, this was a black woman that I was having this nasty encounter with. We weren't cursing or yelling at each other, but you could tell we weren't happy with one another.
Right.
And so the white pilot walks out. And he sees what's going on at the very end of the conversation. I walk away from her. She tells me, yeah, well, you could write it down, write a report. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to write it down. So I get on the plane. I get scanned in. I'm going down the jet bridge. And the pilot comes down behind me and asks everybody that was on the jet bridge, about 4 or 5 people, to go back. So he basically isolates me on the jet bridge by myself. And at some point, he calls one of the flight attendants off the plane as well. And she says, well, I can't leave the plane. So she's kind of like 1 foot on, 1 foot off, trying to listen to what we're saying. First thing he says to me is, respect is a two-way street. And she told you that she didn't have anything to do with your ticket issue. So what's your problem? So I look at him and I'm like, actually, I don't have a problem. I said, but I find it very unreasonable that you're coming up to me telling me about respect, but you haven't asked me what happened. So you don't know what my experience has been. You don't know anything. He says, I don't have to ask you. And I could tell at that point he was super aggressive. I don't have to ask you anything.
He felt he had the power.
He had the powers. She told me already what happened. And I don't, somehow he says to me, now look, I have 160 or 66 people that I need to get to New York. And I need to know if you're going to be able to get on this plane and behave. And he's
like he's your child.
Asked me, was I going to be able to behave? He said, can you, are you going to be a problem in this fight? Can you control yourself? So I look at him. He motions at me to say it to the lady, who's standing there. And I look at her and I say, ma'am, we don't have a problem at all. I said, I'm going to behave. Everything is going to be fine with no issue. And so you would think that's what he asked me. I answered, no problem. He then says, yeah, well, because, if you really have a problem, you need to write it down. And I'm like, don't worry, sir. I'm going to write down this entire experience, which is what probably triggered him, because I'm like, you don't have to worry about that. I got you. I'm going to write it all down. I go to walk away and I hear him, I kind of look back and he says, going to get yourself a one-way ticket off of this flight. So he's still looking for a reaction.
Right.
I don't give him anything, like nothing. I'm like, okay, cool, sir, no problem. Go to my seat, I sit down. I'm in my seat for at least 10 minutes. I'm sitting next to my, now the whole point is I left the middle seat next to him and took the aisle seat that was available. I'm a platinum customer. You're supposed to be able to move around. The ticket was printed out with the aisle seat in another row. So it's not like I went to the gate bugging. Like I need, none of that. So 10 minutes or so goes by. And then they start calling my name from the loudspeaker on the flight. Tamika Mallory twice. Would you come to the front of the plane? I walk up to the front. Got my little book bag. I walked up. My son comes with me just to stand by basically and see like what's going on. I get up there and the lady tells me to basically get off the plane. So I'm like, ma'am, am I being ejected from this flight? And so she looks at me, she says, yes, the pilot has asked that you be, ejected. And I was like, so let me just be clear. I'm being thrown off this flight. I didn't do anything wrong. And I'm just checking. I'm being thrown off. And he said, yeah, her out of here, off. Yeah, her off. And I said, really? Okay. So then I commenced to cussing him. It's hard, like finding the words that I could, every cuss word that I
Why
could
you
come
ain't
up
woosah
with.
first?
I couldn't woosah. No, because I had done that already. I've been through the disrespect of the ticket lady.
And you were trying to get back because your friend was getting married.
My friend was getting married. 25 years I've known this young lady in my life. You know, Mice had a show he was trying to get to. And if you look at my flying record, which I fly like we all do, 3-4 times a week, I don't be getting in arguments with people in the airport. The pilot, you know not to get into an argument with the pilot. I'm just trying to get where I'm going. And basically this man who had the power in that situation, he didn't like me for whatever reason, and he decided that he was going to use his power against me, and it's straight up discrimination. That's the bottom line. The worst part about it is that my son is standing there absolutely saying nothing. He's not doing anything. He's not saying anything. He's just standing there kind of looking like, what the hell is going on? Because he don't even know what's going on. He's been on the plane. He's only aware of a small thing with the seat, because he left me to go make sure he was good on the flight. So he doesn't know what the fuck is going on. Is going on. And then the next thing you know, when the cops came to get us off, the pilot looks at him and tells them, yeah, get him out of here too. So he gets thrown off the flight. Meanwhile, a nice white man, stands up on the flight in the first class, and he's like, excuse me, listen, my wife is in the back. I'll go to the back with her. You could let her sit in my seat. So he got involved. He didn't get thrown off the flight. It's just the two of us, the two black people and the black man who did nothing wrong. So long story short, now I'm pissed. And I done tweeted and everything else, and they find people in the airport. Supervisors come. They trying to get the situation worked out. Took 6 hours for us to get rebooked on another flight. And in the midst of all of that, like the next day, news stories start coming out with other people who are telling their stories. I had already heard about some stuff that happened with a couple other people that y'all know. Simone Sanders from CNN. Yep, Joe Taker, Edie, couple people. But then, I guess like 2 days later, I see a story in the newspaper about this young lady who was with us, Briana Williams. She also, she can tell her own story, but she talks about basically a pilot throwing her off the plane with her 4-month-old baby, and they ended up sleeping in the airport overnight.
Wow.
So that was the next story. And then all of a sudden, my emails and everything began to be flooded with people, particularly women of color and black women, who were talking about being thrown off of flights because of aggression by flight attendants and pilots. And it's for little things that you cannot call threatening.
All flights, or just specifically American Airlines?
A lot. So the Department of Transportation, not Tamika Mallory, not my son, not Briana, the Department of Transportation has said that American Airlines has the worst record in terms of racial discrimination complaints. That's the Department of Transportation. And so the Legal Defense Fund has given them a list of recommendations of things that they can do to try to get better, you know.
So what's the reasoning they give you? Do they have to give you a legit reason to kick you off the plane, or they can just say, hey, you got to go?
Well, what they stated, you know, we had a meeting. And what they basically said
had
is
a meeting
that
with the CEO.
We had a meeting with the
CEO of
CEO
American Airlines.
and the president, the vice president. And basically what they said is that a pilot has absolute power. Like he can just decide for whatever reason
He doesn't want you on the flight.
he doesn't want you on the flight. So I said, how does that protect anybody, a citizen, a person who's paid for their ticket, against discrimination?
Now I understand the pilot having power to kick people off if need be.
Exactly.
Right.
I
Yeah,
said,
gotta
but
be
what
a
is the
reason.
Somebody
criteria?
gets drunk if
I
they're
said,
throwing up,
exactly.
if
I said,
they're
what is the
wilding.
criteria
Yeah,
for
but
what
there
is
should
the
be a
steps?
criteria.
Exactly. They don't have no criteria.
Right.
And I said, you know, absolute power corrupts absolutely. You can't give anyone absolute
power,
power
I
over
agree.
anything. So, you know, that's one thing. And, you know, back to what she said, like, I was really just standing there because, you know, I'm from communities and understand how it's always dangerous for a black man to get involved in anything. And I didn't even really understand what happened because when I walked up, I just seen her. When she got up, she said she sucked her teeth, and I'm like, what happened? And she's not saying nothing to me, so let me just walk behind her to see what's going on. So when I get there, and I see the lady at the jet bridge and the pilot standing off the plane, and all I see is him say, yeah, her off the plane. And then she's like, what? She's confused, and then she starts crying, and then that's when she starts cursing. So I'm standing there, and I'm looking, and I'm like, what is going on here? Like, what's going on? Like, what, sir, what's happening? Nobody's saying anything. And then by the time she was so frustrated, he just walked off to get the police, and I'm just standing there.
So what did American Airlines do to fix this? What are they going to do, if anything?
So, I mean, well, the work that we do, they can't just fix it by giving me something.
Right.
Now, I need to understand the policies and procedures because I need to make sure
So they
people
offered you a
like
check at
Briana.
first?
So they didn't really offer me a check. I'm not even gonna say that. They said, let's try to have a conversation about how we could fix this. The CEO apologized to both of us directly. He came to the meeting himself, which was important.
Right.
But they didn't really say, let me give you a check. But because from day one, our thing was we got to look at the policies and procedures. We have to understand how is this happening to people. And once we started getting calls from all over, we realized it wasn't just us. So we can't go in the room and cut a deal on the backs of people who will be going through this. How we going to stop this from happening?
Yeah, because they're only responding to you because you have a voice.
And that's it,
You had to
because
make a
the
lot of noise on social media for them to
because
respond.
Diddy, exactly. And that's true because Diddy that same night posted that something happened to Tamika Mallory, leaving my conference. I don't know what it is, but I know her and I know that something ain't right here. And then once he got the details, he started to escalate his language and, really explaining to people that it's clear that this is discrimination, right? And they still, for 36, 48 hours, had not called me. So he started running a campaign like it's now been 36 hours and we haven't heard. When is somebody going to call? And eventually he called the CEO himself to be like, yo, yeah, homie, like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm trying to help you. You're not even returning this lady's phone call. So finally they started to call. But the crazy thing is that it was because there was so much attention being put on me. They called, but he was standing there. They never called him at all. So again, the silent victim.
Right, absolutely.
People not. So I know that I have to leverage the fact that, hey, I have the voice that I could get on shows and people are tweeting about me and use that as an opportunity to figure out what happens when Mysonne gets thrown off the plane or Briana gets thrown off the plane and nobody knows because she had gone through this. She can tell her own
What's your story, Briana? What happened?
So, I was flying from Atlanta to New York and we were
Into
stuck.
the mic, Briana.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So I was flying from Atlanta to New York, and we were stuck on the tarmac for 3 hours before they were like, okay, you guys can go ahead and get off of the plane for a little while. However, if you do decide to leave, then you might be off for the next 3 hours. But if you stay on, then we'll give you an update about your flight status within the next 30 minutes. So I had 3 bags along with my 4-month-old daughter, and so I decided not to get off, and it was fine. The crew member came over and was like, hey, are you going to go? If so, we'll go grab your stroller. If not, you can stay here. And I was like, I'm going to stay here. It was fine. And so when everyone reboarded, 30 minutes later, we still hadn't taken off. 2 hours passed, so a total of 5 hours we were stuck on that runway. We still hadn't taken off. And
That's
at this
torture
point,
with a 4-month-old, too.
Yeah, exactly. And it's 10 o'clock at this point. We boarded at 4:55. She's asleep, and you don't want to wake up a sleeping 4-month-old.
Hell no.
No. Yeah, so then after 5 hours, the pilot announces that everyone is mandated to disembark because they wanted to do a head count due to the cancellations and such and the rebookings. And that was fine. So I found that same crew member, and I said, hey, can I please have my stroller? I'm getting ready to disembark, and I have all of my stuff because everyone was taking all of their things. And she says, okay, but then she leaves and comes back and she says, okay, well, we can't bring you your stroller. And I said, okay, well, why? And she says, well, I don't know. And so I say, okay, well, I'm unable physically really to leave this aircraft without my stroller. And she says, well, we can't get it. I'm sorry. And I say, okay, well, I can't leave the aircraft. And then she says, okay, well, we're going to go and get the pilot. And at that point, I'm thinking that the pilot is going to come over and ameliorate the situation or at least investigate as to why I'm not able to get my stroller. And he comes over there and he looks at me and he says, if you don't get off of my aircraft, then when everyone reboards, you're not getting back on. And I say, okay. Oh, wait, well, can I have my stroller? I'm glad to leave. And he says, okay, well, I'm just going to get law enforcement. And at that point, I'm just like,
what?
Yeah. I was like, and mind you, I hadn't raised my voice above a whisper. And I was just, because my daughter was sleeping in my arms. And really, if you think about it, I have a 4-month-old daughter. You can't just throw her on your hip and grab your things. You have to hold her with both arms, especially if she's sleeping. And so at this point, I'm just exasperated. Another passenger, a black lady, she steps in and she's like, hey, you can't talk to her like that. She's not doing anything wrong. She has her baby. They've been quiet for 5 hours. You can't do that. And he points in her face and he says, oh, you want to talk back to me? You want to get arrested? Get off of my flight or you're next. So she gets off, just looking embarrassed. And then the police come And they ask me what's going on. I say, okay, well, I just wanted my stroller. And there was a brief exchange. The pilot runs over and he tells the officers that I'm a threat to him, that I'm belligerent, and that I have to get off of his aircraft and I can't get back on. And they say, okay, well, where's the stroller? And they went and talked to the gate manager. And the gate manager was like, oh, the crew member never even asked me for the stroller. Of course, I'll grab it now. So he ran and grabbed the stroller. I get off and I go and talk to the ticket lady, who then was talking to the pilot, who told her that I had like taken someone's seat or something weird like that. And she came and told me, well, we need to check your identification and such. And when I brought her my identification, she told me that I was not getting back on that flight because it's to the pilot's discretion who was allowed to board. And then I was mandated to sleep in the airport that night because the next flight was at 7 a.m. Exactly.
Did they give you a free voucher or something?
Well, the thing is, I don't have a platform. And I have social media like Instagram, but I don't have anything. I don't even have a Twitter. However, I'm a student at Harvard Law. I'm actually on my last year of law
See what I'm saying?
And exactly. And so I'm the communications director for the Black Law Students Association, so I have access to their Twitter. And so I tweeted from them, oh, Harvard Law students gets kicked off a flight, Black Harvard Law student. And they messaged me right away.
American Airlines.
Exactly.
Wow.
And they called me and they said that they wanted, well, it wasn't actually right away. It was like the next day, but they called me and they asked me if I can take 25,000 air miles and a $200 hotel voucher because of their service failure, because clearly their behavior deviated from standard. They were grossly negligent in my dealings. And I said that, well, that's not going to work.
Wow.
So after meeting with the CEO and the vice president, like where do we go from here? Because I know the NAACP had a travel advisory.
Right. So before that, we went to the NAACP and explained to them what was going on. And one of their board members had been thrown off of a flight, and a couple other people who they know, as well as other situations that they were aware of. So they decided to issue the travel advisory. Once they did, the CEO got more involved in what was going on. So now we've been able to go and sit down and meet with them. And you know what? The CEO, I have to say, he came to the meeting. He was extremely sincere that there are some issues that need to be corrected, and we're ready to work on them. And, talked about how we continue to work together. But implementation is what is really all about, right? Because that conversation, that meeting has not stopped one person probably from being discriminated against or thrown off of a flight, humiliated, and all the other things. So we have to stay at the table so long as we see that there is progress happening. And the NAACP has not lifted their travel advisory yet because we haven't seen that. Because, you can be all sincere in here like, yeah, we're going to do better. And then you turn it over to your staff, and how it actually gets implemented is where the real work is.
Yeah, somebody has to get in trouble. A pilot has to get suspended. Yeah. Somebody has to lose their job for people to understand really what's going on.
So there's a problem with that. So you know me, I always take the path of most resistance. Like, I can't be the person that just accepts that somebody tells me there's nothing we can do about a pilot disrespecting people. Here's the problem. What I realize is when you look at the numbers, pilots, that is an industry that is largely male, probably overwhelmingly male and white.
Absolutely.
So when you give white men arbitrary decision-making power over people, and particularly people of color who we understand the historical issues around that, you have to have some mechanisms in place to make sure that it's being, people are being checked,
fairly,
that there's accountability
absolutely
there, because you can't just give. We know what happens with that kind of power.
Same problem with the police.
Exactly. So you hate to liken pilots to police, but they have power to make decisions, agency over one's body. And so now I got to understand the rules with the pilots. The airline is not really responsible for that, because even when the airline institutes all of their policy changes and they decide they want to do all these trainings and all the things, whatever they end up doing, it's still, pilots are not always subjected to the same things that their other employees are subjected to.
Yeah, they have no obligation to go through the training. Nothing.
They're subject to the FAA. It's a federal regulation that says if a pilot sees that a passenger is maybe even the least bit threatening, then they have the discretion at that point to eject the passenger for the safety of the other passengers. However, again, if we're talking about non-safety concerns which are being disputed, like Tamika, which is the seat, and mine, which is being a stroller, then the pilots at that point are using this rhetoric in order to advance a very discriminatory and oppressive type of mechanism, which is, okay, we're going to just get these people off of our plane and use this FAA regulation as a shield at that point. So they're subverting the law in order to cover up their biases.
Yeah, that's Harvard right there.
Right,
You heard
yeah,
that?
see?
From Harvard.
I feel like pilots need to have to file not a police report, but some type of report. They have to
Exactly.
say
Some
why
type
they
of
kicked this person off the
criteria.
plane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they do, but they can say it for any reason. The person being threatened.
They just
or
have to
being
say threat.
belligerent.
Exactly.
That's
That's
the
the
word.
problem.
It's just the
and
word.
That's the same thing
That's the
that
problem.
police do, right? They just say,
Exactly.
"Oh,
I was
felt
threatened.
afraid," you know, and then there it goes. So now we have to get to the bottom line of that. So the question is, what do we do? You can't go spending your money places where you know your people are not being
Absolutely.
respected. That it always
But the difficult
comes
part
down
about
to
that is this is all pilots in every airline. The
it
same
is,
way.
but what we have to see, our issue is that we do try to bite the whole apple at once and eat it. We got to take little pieces. So now we know that there is a specific issue with American Airlines. And while it is being worked on, they understand that there is an advisory against them, and people have the right to choose another airline until they are able to verify that there's been significant changes. So while it's holiday season now, you need to be on whatever else, if that's what you choose to do.
So we encourage people.
I'm not encouraging people to boycott anything, because I think you have to be careful when you say that. I'm encouraging people to understand what has happened and make a decision that they think is best for all of us as a community.
Travel advisory. You're making people aware that
What
happened.
that discrimination has happened on this airline.
Exactly.
The discrimination is prolific on
Right.
this particular
There's a
airline.
pattern.
There's no black-owned airlines, huh?
No, but I'm sure, if Diddy gets involved in something, he's probably sitting there twirling his fingers about, like, how do we actually get that done? And I'm sure that it's an industry that's not easy to break into, right? But at the end of the day, we need to be conscious of that. And I think that will encourage American Airlines to become a leader in the industry, because that's what we talked to them about. This is an opportunity for you to become a leader in the industry, so that Delta and everybody else gets a message that we can't just go along to get along, business as usual. We've got a serious problem. But I also think that when we come forth with our ideas about what we need to do to challenge the policies for pilots, which is outside of the airline industry, then people have to also be involved in those conversations.
Haven't their stocks dropped like 2% or something like that?
It was dropping more than 2%.
12%.
Yeah,
12%,
over
okay.
time. Yep. And they, of course, people came forward saying this has nothing to do with the travel advisory, because they never. It's like when we do the whole Christmas boycotts where people are not shopping, and you saw clearly once we started saying after Mike Brown, no shopping on Christmas, that the numbers went down tremendously in store. Macy's had stores closing. But of course, when the economists come forth, they start talking about all these other things, because they don't want you to realize that you have power.
Absolutely.
But we have $1.3 trillion in spending power. I've seen the minister talk about it here on this show. We have the ability to affect change just by what we use, what we spend our money on.
I don't know how you have time to fight all of this, Tamika.
Listen, it's a process. It's like, why I just wanted to get where I was going. Like, that's one place that I don't have time to be fighting with the airline. Okay, a couple days later, we had to go to Phoenix to speak at the Arizona State. We had to cancel the American Airlines flights we had, book new tickets for 2 days later. That's double the cost. It's a whole lot of stuff. I don't have time to fight there, but I see, we have bus fight, we got airline flights, because all of it is not about the actual company. It's about equality for our people. Like, we can't be disrespected anywhere. And every time our people are able to win, as we did with the Montgomery bus boycott and other things over time, it gives us the confidence to fight other battles.
Gotcha.
I've been having struggles with this, with I guess the quest for equality, because I feel like we'll never be equal in the eyes of racists.
Well,
So I feel like what is that exactly? What does that look like when we say equality?
Is
We
the
want
goal
equality.
to be equal in the eyes of a racist?
right.
No.
Look, now you
No,
gotta have her on your show.
I think, yeah, that's not really the goal. The goal is to carve out our own and be able to speak from positions of power. So you can't really be equal to somebody that doesn't see you equal, but when you able to come to them in a position of power, so you can't have a demand when you can't threaten anything. So that's what's happened with us in America. We keep having demands, and we doing this, and we saying no justice, no peace, but we don't get no justice, and they keep getting peace.
Yeah.
So the reality is, we got to figure out, we got to put ourselves on to the position to where when we say it's no peace, we can mean it. You understand what I'm saying? Like,
money.
as you
also
said,
owning our own stuff too.
Exactly.
Like,
That's what I think. Taking back our dollar.
We talk about
Exactly.
black banks, but we have to get more people to start making sure they bank with black banks. You know what I mean? We have to make sure that there's more banks available where people don't have to drive to areas where they don't live to get banks. You know, no matter what it is that we own, whether it's a clothing store, that we own the clothing store, whether it's a bottling company, we own the bottling company. The things that we use, like we spend so much money, but none of the stuff we own.
Right.
we
And
just
that's the
got to
problem.
But I think it's also that
resources.
accountability mechanism is important, right? We have to be, when you said being equal in the eyes of a racist, it's not about being equal in their eyes. It's about letting them know that if you play with me, as my son said, we'll shut you down and you'll be out of business. So whether you could be at your house with your family and be as racist as you want, but if you take it to work with you, you will be fired or your business will be closed. That's what we have to have, our power. That's our power.
Has to be
Also, I think that
accountable.
is an important element of racism is power. Power is operative in it in order to subjugate another group of people. So if we take back our power, then how useful will they be at all? Just because they're racist. However, again, through breaking into these capitalistic institutions and giving our people opportunities, and this is not just monetarily, this is education, this is housing, and so on and so forth, even talking about starting conversations, meaningful dialogue related to intergenerational wealth and such, and combat that generational poverty and these mainstream issues that we're subjecting our children to. That's how to take back our power. And so once we take back that power, it's no more operative in that racist term. And then guess what? What do they have over us?
See, this is why I want my daughter to go to Harvard.
Harvard.
Yeah.
Harvard.
I'm dead ass. Like,
Like
I've taken my
what?
daughter to Harvard
Yeah.
twice. She got Harvard paraphernalia all in her room. That's why I want her to go to Harvard right
That's
there.
There you go. Well, we
Bring her
appreciate
while
you
I'm in
guys.
there. I'll tell her.
When's you got one more year?
Yeah, I have one more year.
Okay.
So you got to bring her this year.
All right.
Well, we appreciate you guys for joining us. Thank you for coming.
Now, hold on. I
through.
want to talk to Mike. I want to ask Mike something real quick.
Okay. I'm
Okay.
sorry, my
Now, we
bad.
had a big debate here
About what?
on the Breakfast Club about your cipher verse
Yes, sir.
and Eminem's cipher verse.
Yes, sir.
I personally feel like Eminem's cipher verse was overrated and yours was underrated. Do you have an opinion as an MC?
I feel mine was underrated. I don't know if I feel his was overrated because I'm an Eminem fan, and I just think he did utilize his platform and he said something that was needed. You know, and this time we definitely need white allies to come to our aid and utilize their voices to mirror what it is that we're saying. So, you know, I'm a M fan. Just being compared to M to me was like, you know, it was phenomenal. But
I agree
definitely
with his messaging, but I'm just talking about just the bars. I'm like,
I mean, I always think I'm the best rapper in the
Yeah,
world.
yeah.
So, you know, if you ask me, I'm always say my bars is better. But that was Eminem. Like, to be compared to Eminem was like, this is Marshall. You know what I'm saying? So it was dope, man. Just being on that platform and people reacting and actually getting what I wanted them to get from it. And then having him do that at the same time. So, you know, the message was clear that we was trying to do something that was positive and it was uplifting.
I feel like you having a breakthrough, man. Like something is really about to happen for Mike.
God willing, man. You know, like I did it the harder way, like you know what I'm saying? So I've been through it and grinded and, you know, just been honest with myself and been authentic. You know, you know me from day one. I've been the same person and just been the same message, just authenticity, man. I think we're in a position now, when you look at Cardi B, it's about authentic. People just want to appeal. They want to be around something that's authentic. So, and that's always been what I've been. So God willing, you know, this is God's work. So, you know, God willing, it works how it is.
Is the industry really supporting? Like, are they just posting you on Instagram and saying,
I mean,
dope you are? Are they
they
really
are.
like, let's do something?
There are people that supporting. There's a lot of people that supporting. You know, you would want more support, but I'm used to grinding by myself. So, you know, I'm doing everything independent right now, just grinding and putting in the work. Everybody I see is really supportive, give me hugs and like, yo, I appreciate what you're doing. Music is dope. What you're saying is real. So, you know, it's just a matter of time.
Word.
Well, there you have it.
And then Envy's gonna play my record, so everything's
He's
gonna
gonna
work
lie
out.
to you and say he will.
No.
But
Now you gonna make sure he do though. I'm gonna text you every time.
word.
That's right. Now you lying right
We
now.
got you.
Well, there you have it. It's Mysonne, Tamika Mallory, Briana. Thank y'all for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning.